Hello, everyone. Uh, I was supposed to host this hangout, just like the last series of hangouts that this is part of, but I've been having all these issues, technical issues, which you'll be probably well aware of if you've seen any of my recent hangouts. So Tim's graciously offered to host it.
Graciously, indeed.
Because you're definitely a man of grace. I think we can all agree of grace and elegance. Right. Well, so this is as explained in the description. This is a sequel to a hangout we did, quite many months ago, which we just basically looked at some tweets and laughed at them and explained, and talked about why they were stupid.
No, it was 9 months ago.
Right.
So the baby is born. It's come to term. There is no baby. But yeah, exactly 9 months ago. So I guess March or something. Yeah. So the question is, have tweets gotten stupider?
Well, I mean, that's too broad an assertion to be able to prove or disprove. But in my sort of general feeling, anecdotally, is the stupid people seem to have come out in force. I have to say.
Yeah, because I mean, you said we should do a stupid tweets thing, and over the past 2 days, it's been like actually kind of incredible how many stupid tweets I've seen. So it's like, this is very serendipitous timing, because holy shit, like Twitter is in a bad space. So it was very easy to find a lot of stupid tweets, to be honest.
The last time we did this, I remember we ended up planning it for, it wasn't like massively long, but like, like a week or two, maybe, like compiling all the tweets and stuff. And this time, like literally, what is this, like 12 hours or like a little bit more than 12 hours to turn around
like,
to get
I want to do stupid tweets. And I was like, oh man, you have no idea.
And then you just opened up and just bombarded me with stupidity. And I was like, holy crap.
I've been having ridiculous arguments recently.
Yeah, it's been rough out there. Well, shall we have a look at the first one? I think this will work. I mean, me screen sharing it, but we'll soon find out.
Yep.
Okay. I guess that one. This one. Yes.
Also, I hope the lady just doesn't show up for a flat inspection right in the middle of this hangout, because she's supposed to show up.
Is that up? Is that working?
Yep. Oh shit! Garrett died. Garrett's dead, everybody. Okay, so I have to improvise. So how about them? How about them airports, huh? We're so busy. What's the deal with that? Like, it's horrible. Long lines and stuff. Okay. Oh wait. What the fuck was the tweeting? Oh, there he is.
Not a
I was trying to go into like a Seinfeld thing. I was like, ports.
It was not.
There's so many lines.
Not a fortuitous or serendipitous beginning to this hangout, but all right, maybe you should screen share.
I think the audience liked that because they could relate to my, conversation about airport lines. Okay.
Existential panic. Well, okay, so do you want to do the screen sharing, and I will just try and not do anything to challenge this hangout crap, like to cause it to crap out.
Wait a minute. If I open another window to my soul, don't share the porn I currently have on the screen. That would be good.
Yeah, open another window and then share just the window itself with the
porn.
Just so you can switch back and forth without like doing that cascading infinity thing that happens.
Oh yeah, that thing trips me out. All right, I just have to actually find the list.
Sorry, folks. We had set up for me to do the screen sharing, so we'd planned it that way, but it's not working out. So Tim's gonna do.
Yeah, what's going on with your stuff right now? It's completely screwed.
I don't know. I'm not the only one having issues with YouTube at the moment, and apparently there's this thing going on with Hangouts where they're phasing them out and replacing them with some other thing or something. I don't really know.
Oh god, like iHangout or something.
God knows. But yeah, okay, so there we go. It's working.
Yeah.
So this is the first one. I tweeted about this and it got a decent amount of attention, but I needed to highlight it again because this is amazing. It's an older tweet. I thought we'd start with a couple of older tweets.
So December 2012, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to start with a couple of old tweets and then we'll move into all like current ones, like recent ones. So yeah, here we have anti-PC hero Donald Trump totally like saying insane crap about video games.
Right.
Hyperbolic reactionary nonsense.
We didn't, I mean, did we include the one about the flag burning? Is that later?
No, I thought I wanted to have 2 Trump tweets, but it just didn't really work out. There were so many tweets to address. I mean, we can talk about that if you want to.
Well, I mean, because that just shows that this reactionary stuff Trump's been doing has been going on for a long time. Like in 2012 as well, he was doing this whole reactionary thing of like, I don't like this. It's bad. I'm going to say bad thing about it. And then, actually, you know, at least with the flag burning thing, that's a matter of freedom of expression in the First Amendment. You can't just say, that's bad. I don't like it. But the conservatives are like, we care about the Constitution. It's all about the Constitution. And then he's like, you know, burn the flag, get put in prison. And this is like, oh, we're on the right, and we have the means of production with Pepe and everything, and we're all about damn video games. And then, our guy is also saying this. So,
yeah. Hey, before we unscreen share, I just wanted to call attention to the interaction underneath the tweet with Keemstar. So he makes a statement. He says, Donald Trump doesn't really think that way anymore. He says the issue is mental health, not video games. And then a bunch of people below, if you scroll through, I scrolled through this like for ages, and there's a bunch of people ask him for a source, a citation for that of some kind, just anything, just another tweet or whatever, and he just silence. So right. That's not a substantiated claim made there.
Well, it reminds me a little bit of like Milo Yiannopoulos saying that gamers are like virgin loser whatevers.
Yeah, and yeah, 12-year-old boys in their parents' basements and stuff. Yeah.
And then he turns around and becomes like the figurehead or idol for like the exact people that he was bashing. And it's kind of similar with Donald Trump. He says these things about, you know, video games, and a lot of people who are hardcore into video games are also big on the whole memes thing. And they support this guy who said this horrific shit about them. It's just quite strange. So. Oh
yeah, the Venn diagram between like Trump supporters and Gamergaters, I imagine there's a decent amount of overlap there.
Yeah, I mean, but it's also like, you know, they support the Constitution, but he's saying explicitly you should get put in prison if you exercise your First Amendment rights. And Tim, some of them are like, this is too far, we don't like it. And a bunch of the other people are like, oh yeah, it's fine, no worries.
Tim, do you want to unscreen share? People are probably getting bored of looking at it.
The beautiful face again.
Yeah, I mean, I called attention to. I saw it was Super Cat Robot, or what do we call him these days?
Now he's Tom Bloke.
Yeah.
And he told me in no uncertain terms that's his real name, and I was like, I still don't believe you.
That is not his real name.
He was like, my name is Tom Bloke. No,
it is not.
Bullshit. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it was he who called my attention to this tweet, and I shared it because I don't know. I think this sort of thing needs to be highlighted. That this is the kind of person that Trump is. He's just a hysterical, reactionary, uninformed, like ignoramus. You know. Who just like make snap judgments about things on tiny amounts of information. That's the only people who think video game violence causes real violence in any kind of direct way, because he says it's creating monsters. He's not being nuanced in his rhetoric, you know.
Well, that was probably in reaction to some event, right? Like some kind of.
Yeah, I imagine so. Well, actually, with Trump, no, it's probably more like it seems to be more like with Trump.
He was up late one night in his underpants, like, yeah, I think I'll tweet something.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, he was up late night in his underpants, but he was like watching something, and it got him racked up. So he
like, this really grinds my gears.
Yeah, he was probably watching some YouTube video or something on a right-wing blog or something, reading a right-wing blog. It was probably a fucking Breitbart article, you know.
Well, I think what this tweet shows is just that, you know, the guy that they're holding up, his principles don't align to what they're constantly putting forth, and they're always trying to say that they do, but they just really don't seem to. Wait, what did Keemstar say about it not being as what he really thinks these days? He says the issue is mental health, not video games. So they're like, oh, he's changed or something. But I mean, he may not have had strong values on it in the first place. It's just like a gut reaction. And I think the problem with that is you don't want to have like a president or someone with that much power just going off gut reactions. And he seems to do that a lot.
That's the thing, is even if he doesn't believe it anymore, it is indicative of the kind of way his mind works. He just has a little bit of information from a no doubt totally biased, ridiculous source, and then just like makes a snap judgment, you know?
Yeah, like, it bad. Me not like.
And that guy's going to be president. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, should we go to the next one?
Oh, this is my favorite one. But this is an older one as well. I freaking love this one. Okay. Fuck. All right, here it is. Oh my god, I laughed when I saw this because I love ClickHole. Like, it's so funny. They make the weirdest, most bizarre videos of just like, for example, one of them is heartwarming, like, man tells his father he's gay, and then the man eats 25 tacos. And it's just like, he's like, Dad, I'm gay. And he's like, it's okay, son. That's okay. And you're like, oh. And then he just starts eating tacos, and he eats 25 tacos while the kid's sitting there. And then Sargon's like, where are your ethics? People who make videos like that, you know?
I love like the way Sargon has this ridiculously high, well, not okay, the standard isn't like comparatively in general ridiculously high, but his standard for a satirical outlet attached to the Onion.
It's like, yeah, lack of ethics in parody journalism.
Parody journalism.
You know, it's basically what it is.
Ethics in comedy journalism.
Like, I can't believe ClickHole would make something up. Unreal. It's like 99.99% of what they do is make things up. So,
and this tweet is like a couple of like, well, it's a slightly less, like a slightly badly worded like version of this with the word bad at the end, and it would be a Trump tweet, you know?
Right. Well, it is. It's like a gut reaction. Like, oh, I saw something I didn't like. I'm not going to bother checking out where it came from, like the context, or whether this source is just like so uncredible as a source of real information that there's just no point in even bothering to say you should be credible because it's ClickHole. No, he's like, rah, not like. You retract.
You want to unshare? Yeah, it's amazing that he has these standards for ClickHole that he doesn't seem to apply to himself, any of his friends, the right-wing media in general.
To me, it was just a funny one because ClickHole is just absolutely one of my favorite like YouTube channels, and everyone should subscribe to it just for something very bizarre that you should probably be on acid on or stoned for as much as possible, because their videos are just totally out there. So I was just like, I couldn't conceive of somebody being like, ClickHole, where's your ethics? Like, I can't understand it. Like, it's just beyond my comprehension. So yeah.
ClickHole, damn it. You need to prove harassment in Gamergate right now on Twitter. Yeah. But anyway.
Well, I have no idea what they were originally saying, but whatever it was, it's ClickHole, so it could be dismissed, whatever the fuck it was, and it was probably just funny or weird.
Well, no, they were making a serious-ish statement. It's quoted in Sargon's tweet, but no, like,
but there's no context around that. I don't know. I'd have to look up what the context was, but
that's very true. But I think the key to this whole thing isn't really about ClickHole. It's about Sargon. Okay, you remember? Here's an example. Do you remember? A while ago, Sargon put out a video in which he had a clip of Bill O'Reilly making a ridiculous claim that was obviously nonsense, and him going, well, why would Bill O'Reilly lie? Why should we have any reason to mistrust Bill O'Reilly? As if Bill O'Reilly's this fucking saint of like honesty in media. It's a fucking ridiculous. It's like because he's lied like a whole bunch of times before, and then doubles and triples and quadruples down on his lies with a seeming like psychological incapability to admit that he's full of shit. Like the whole, the thing about the war in the Falklands. And he said he was down in Argentina, and he said he was, and he said he was like on the front where he was actually like hundreds of miles away in a city in a like hotel and stuff. Yeah, and he just keeps doubling and tripling down on it and shit. It's like, okay, so that's the standard he has for Bill O'Reilly compared to a guy who's an actual supposed journalist, never doing parody, always supposed to be, an actual journalist, even though he's an opinion guy or whatever, but still, compared to fucking ClickHole.
Well, people have shifting standards based on, the ideology behind whatever is being said or reported by that reporter or group. So, for example, they'll say like, why should we distrust Bill O'Reilly when he's saying something that they agree with? But the moment somebody says something they disagree with, they're like, that person's not credible. They're smearing, And I think that's covered in our next tweet that we're going to cover.
Hold on, just give me a second.
This is very related to the next tweet.
Just give me 1 second before you put it up. Yeah, actually, no. Just go ahead. We might as well put it up and then talk about it.
Oh, there's one thing I thought of. Like, for example, people always say, if something's true, it doesn't matter who reported it. So, and then often use that. And I find that, true or not, that's often used as an excuse to try and paint something like Breitbart as a legitimate source. Because look, Breitbart said one thing, that is true. Is that true? Yeah, it's true. Okay, Breitbart is therefore a good source. And they won't say that that's what they're doing, but they're trying to give Breitbart more credibility.
I did think of one thing specific to this Trump situation, is that people should keep in mind that Mitt Romney, the exact same thing happened during the 2012 campaign, the 2012 election. Mitt Romney was caught out tons of times saying stuff that was directly sourced to right-wing blogs, Breitbart, the Drudge Report, all of that shit.
Well, I would say that doesn't automatically make what is being sourced or said false, but it does make it a lot more likely.
Well, it's not saying anything necessarily that much about the sources. It's saying stuff about Mitt Romney, because he's saying stuff that is not attributed or given as reality outside of like the right-wing blogosphere.
Well, I think the issue is not that Breitbart or right-wing blogosphere can't say true things. It's that their track record is fucking horrific.
Yeah, I'm not saying they can't say true things. I'm saying their history of bothering to evidence claims is almost nil. And what happens is, like, okay, here's an example that I can't actually remember what specific story that I was going to refer to, but let's morph two examples together. You remember the story about how Obama was going to India and it was going to cost $200 million a day with the Navy and stuff. Yeah. So if you trace that all the way back, it's like some right-wing blog citing some total unknown person, one source in India who was just making up lies.
I think people like Dinesh D'Souza repeated that a lot too.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing is that, okay, I don't know if this is specifically the case for that story, but I remember Rachel Maddow was covering and she does a lot of stuff about this sort of thing. And she was giving an example of where Fox News had said, no, we can't run this story. It doesn't have enough sources behind it. It doesn't have enough legitimacy. The specific phrase they used was, it does not meet our journalistic standards for something we'd put out on air. And so, but then what happened is somebody else did it. It was oh god, what's the guy with the Tucker Carlson? He launched a whole thing. What was his thing? He launched
Daily Caller.
Yeah, the Daily Caller. They printed it. A story with almost no attribution that was totally unethical to run. They printed it, and as soon as one of the like reasonably well-known sources within the right-wing blogosphere, as soon as one of them does it, they all do it. And as soon as and within days or within hours, Fox was running it. Something they had just said did not meet their standards for putting on air. They ran it.
Right. Yeah. Because it goes into the bloodstream.
So in that so in that way, when you have a like insulated like sort of sub media, it's just the most extreme, the laziest, the most unethical person drives the discourse.
And I was just thinking, like how people cherry pick false things from articles, like, oh, this article was mostly sound, I guess, but there was this error, so it's bullshit. I feel like with the right-wing news, people cherry pick the true bits. They're like, oh, but this bit was true, therefore it's probably kind of it's probably all right, in order to imply that we should see Breitbart or whatever is more credible. Whereas with anything else, they'll cherry pick the false stuff, be like, there was an error, so that's no good. And you can just see that they've got shifting standards. Like they want to make, like some people, just nebulous people, they want to make Breitbart look good, and they want to make these other sources look bad. So you can just see like the methodology they apply is not consistent, what they choose to see.
If I
will choose to ignore all of the false stuff in this Breitbart article and just say the two things that were correct. So now you have to think it's all right. Like,
if I remember correctly, that is called selection bias, where if you go through something you agree with, you select everything you agree with, and if you go through something you disagree with, you select everything you disagree with. Yeah,
totally. I mean, I see that all the time with people citing right-wing sources. You're like, well, what about all this other complete bullshit? And they're like, oh, don't worry about that. They said one fact that was right. And you're like, okay, you don't seem to have much, incredulity about these sources. You just sort of try to find whatever's right in them. And I think that's very ideologically driven, because I think...
Yeah, I try not to do that. Like, I try to be the other way, because I think that's the only way to actually counteract it, is to be a little bit too harsh the other way. Like, for example, when I read, like, feminist texts and stuff, I'm usually more skeptical than I would normally be. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So this is the next tweet then, and I think this is a good one because it's.
So we're sticking with Sargon, but we're going into the recent era.
Well, we're not going to spend the whole time on Sargon. We had a 2-tweet limit for each person. So this is the last, second and last. All right. So this is outside of your bubble. It looks like Tomi Lahren absolutely destroyed you, Trevor Noah, because Tomi Lahren, who's like right-wing person, went on. I just dismissed her, right-wing person. She went on The Daily Show and tried to make her case for Black Lives Matter. And I think a lot of people,
against Black Lives Matter, not for it.
For destroying Black Lives Matter. And, and a lot of the people, even on Sargon's quote-unquote side, were like, Sargon, I hate Black Lives Matter just as much as you, but I don't think she did a very good job. I saw a lot of people saying that. Like, people who hate Black Lives Matter were like, she actually didn't really make a good case. But Sargon's like, she destroyed him, demolished him. Trevor Noah is dead. He's gone.
If you scroll down, most of the comments, there's a mix of comments. Some of them are saying, just focusing on the things that Trevor Noah did badly.
They're both idiots. They're watching two retarded mascots. What? I don't know.
That was what I was going to say. Is most of the comments are like that one. They say that both of the people did badly. That's what most of these.
They were both weak.
Reflect.
Often they both lost. It's their way of kind of saying that their person lost without admitting it. Like both
exactly. I saw the same thing quite a bit, although not as much as in this case, in the Sargon versus Christie debate.
I can't see any of them saying that she crushed him.
No, there's two types of comments. There's the ones saying they both fucked up, and then there's the ones saying that Trevor Noah fucked up and just not saying anything about Tomi Lahren. You're saying, yes, you're right, Sargon, because Trevor Noah said this dumb thing, and then just not addressing anything about what. Funny. Yeah,
Trevor Noah is a textbook example of a token black. What? He's from South Africa, and he hosts.
Yeah, how is that a textbook example of a token black guy in America? It's fucking ridiculous. Okay, so I wanted to get on to the other aspect of this, the blocked by Viacom, the Viacom thing. So should we talk about? Do you want to talk about the like substance of the tweet for a while still, or should we just move to that part of it?
Well, he also made a video which also ended up getting copyright struck. So that got
it got DMCA'd, a supposedly false DMCA'd, but I doubt it personally.
But I mean, I found that video fascinating because it was titled "Tomi Lahren destroys Trevor Noah," but when you actually watch the video, he doesn't let Tomi Lahren make her case. Basically,
Right.
Trevor Noah says something, and then he spends like 5 to 10 minutes raging at him, and then he plays Tomi talking. So it was. I think it should have been retitled "Sargon helps Tomi Lahren destroy Trevor Noah," because he basically just makes all of the arguments that she did pretty much failed to make. So it was you know, watch me help Tomi Lahren destroy Trevor Noah in the way she was supposed to, had she done a better job. You know,
I should point out that I was against this, I was against the idea of having Tomi Lahren on the Daily Show. I think it legitimizes her because it's not a debate, it's an interview, you know, and I think interviews tend to legitimize people somewhat. But yeah, anyway, so okay, do you want to unscreen share and we'll talk about the Viacom thing before we move on?
Okay, but just the interesting thing on that is I think Sargon wanted her to win, and her demolishing him, that's what he wanted. So he had to like make a video that was like her doing that. So he did everything he could. But even people on his side were like, she made a poor case. And he's like, only if you live in the bubble. The bubble, which is people who disagree with me. That's the bubble.
Yeah, it's the whole bubble thing is quite amusing because man, is Sargon in a bubble.
A bubble of one.
Well,
bubble
no. Boy. He's in a bubble of a lot more than one, but it's still a bubble.
I guess.
Well, I mean, he's not anywhere near as bad as some of these people, but his choices for sourcing, for citations, often he doesn't even read them, so they often don't even say what he says they say. But a lot of the ones that do say, sorry, I was just going to say a lot of the ones that do say what he says are terrible sources that have no legitimacy or trustworthiness, you know?
Well, I say a bubble of one because I think a lot of what he does is mostly just confirmation bias driven by what he wants to be true. And if anything is conflicting to that, he'll just discount it or underplay it or insult it. And in that sense, there's no information, you know, going in and coming out when it comes to Sargon. So in that way, I feel like he's intellectually and mentally isolated, but, you know, his views are going to align with a bunch of people, obviously, because like the whole anti-SJW thing appeals to people, but I feel like he's somewhat insulated from like new information because I can't see any like progression in his thinking, you know?
Well, I mean, only if you use the word progression in a non-judgmental, non-moral sense, you could say he's progressing in a negative direction, you know?
Well, like he's learning about something, but
he's getting lazier. I just mean he's getting lazier, especially with his sourcing and with his citations and stuff. And like that feminist for autism thing. I mean, God, if you look at the citations for that, as Sean and Jen did, it's shit.
The only thing left in the tank is like ideological thinking, just being driven by your ideology. I think that's like the only thing he's really got left. So
I was gonna say before that I don't necessarily think it's that he agrees with Bill O'Reilly and disagrees with Trevor Noah or ClickHole, sorry, because of an ideological thing as such. I think it's more just what is specifically being said in the moment. Well, whoever's saying the thing he agrees with is the person he's going to side with, you know.
Well, I mean, but he has an ideology, but it's mostly anti. It's like anti-feminism, anti-SJW, anti these people, anti, you know, that person over there with blue hair, anti, you know, these other liberals I don't like. Everything's just anti.
No, I don't know. I'd say he's pro-European ethnocentrism.
Because he's like anti people who aren't like, you know,
yeah, but I mean, yeah, but you could say that about, you could say feminism is anti-inequality instead of pro-equality if you want to, you know, shuffle the words around. You can do that with anything. But no, I think Sargon, I know what you mean, but I do think Sargon is pro a few things. He's pro-white European ethnocentrism. He's pro-traditional. He's a traditionalist, and he's pro-free market crap like Friedrich Hayek and all them. So he is pro a few things. Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry, bro. I was swearing. All right. Just swearing due to dishonesty. My big thing. All right. What's next?
Should we move on? Yeah, should we move
on? Traffic light. What's this one all about?
This is where we're going to spend a few tweets in a row talking about one particular thing.
The Trevor Noah thing.
A recent incident. No. It was that I actually don't know the details of it that much, and I know you do. So good. Oh right, no, this is still the Trevor Noah thing. Sorry, I was wrong. The next one is when we move on to the thing we're going to talk about for a while. My bad. All right,
oh, this one was funny.
Yeah, this is someone who just doesn't understand humor. They just don't. They think Trevor Noah was actually trying to make a serious analogy to traffic lights.
Well, I mean, Tomi Lahren says, I don't see color. Trevor Noah, what do you do at a traffic light? And this person's saying, you're comparing me to a traffic light. A person was not being compared to a traffic light in this conversation. Like, what? Where did that come from?
Exactly, because it wasn't an analogy. It was a joke. He's a professional comedian, and someone says something stupid. What do you think he's going to say in response? He's going to make a joke. It's his job.
Don't get how she goes for the reverse racism angle. Like, if a white person said you are a traffic light to a black person, all hell would break loose. I think just no, people would be like, I don't know what this guy's talking about, because that doesn't make sense.
A couple of things. Firstly, that is the exact kind of joke that Jon Stewart, Colbert, John Oliver, they would all make the exact same kind of joke to someone saying, I don't see color. You know?
Yeah, I don't
that kind of humor.
How's it racist? I don't understand.
Well, it's not. And like, I could totally picture Jon Stewart making that exact joke, and that if he swapped them out, he would have said something similar to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's what they do.
He's making fun of her for being colorblind. He's not saying that somebody is a traffic light. So yeah, I don't know. I don't even think he's not even making fun of her being colorblind. It's just basically a play on words. No, but he was, because when you watch the interview, she says, I don't see color, and the audience laughs, and I think they were laughing like, oh, this talking point, ha 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 ha. And I think Trevor Noah was like, oh, this is my chance to swoop in and make fun of this talking point by saying, what do you do at a traffic light, like in a sarcastic way. But I don't know how it's offensive to like races. Like, if he was a white dude and he made the same joke, I literally don't know why hell would break loose. I don't get it. So we were talking before about like, okay, maybe this is insubstantial, not like an important tweet or whatever, but we did say the wider point of this is she is looking for a reason to be offended about it, because I guess she doesn't like his argument, she doesn't like him or something. She could just say that was a dumb joke and he's a jerk, but instead she tries to make it something racial and something about human rights. She's digging, gotta find something,
Right, you want to unshare?
I think that's the wider point, like looking for offense.
Yeah, well, that is the first thing. When you showed me that tweet, that was the very first thing that popped into my head. This is a great example of what people on the right call outrage culture.
Yep.
They just saw a thing they knew they were going to disagree with based on the people involved in the format. The fact that it was on The Daily Show and the fact that it was Tomi Lahren being interviewed. They knew what their side was going to be. They went in like that. So they were looking for anything to help that position, and so they were just nitpicking any possible thing, and then the first sign of anything comes up and they just overinflate it to the most ridiculous degree and make it something out of nothing. I mean, surely,
like, oh, he's a jerk, that's a mean joke, human rights trampled, reverse racism,
literally
bad.
Calling reverse racism and trampling of human rights in regard to a fucking cheap joke. I mean, it's the most fucking ridiculous. But yeah, and I mean, Trevor Noah is half white, half black. I'm pretty sure he knows about color blindness. He's had a lot of experience with all of that shit. Pretty sure he knows what he's talking about when it comes to that stuff.
Then again, he's just a typical talk show host from South Africa. They're all over the place.
yeah. They're
everywhere. So many of them.
Yeah, that's typical half black, half white South African stand-up comedians turned talk show host.
Picking our talk show jobs. Okay, so the next one needs a little bit of context. It's about a podcaster called Nice Mangoes, who is an ex-Muslim who lives in Canada. She recently got into some fights with Gad Sad, I can't say his name, and Dave Rubin a little bit, and a bunch of other people, and they've started to throw her under the bus now and say, she's a horrible troll, she's a piece of shit, she's probably, how do we know she's an ex-Muslim? She might be faking it. And she's anonymous, so she should show her face and all this kind of shit. And this next tweet is from Dave Rubin. So
yeah, we're gonna be talking about this one for the next at least couple of tweets. I can't remember, there was a few tweets.
There's one from Gad said.
I think it's Gad said. I can't bother remembering. I've watched some of this stuff.
Oh God. Oh Gad. Okay, I'll just share it now. So it's this one. She's a professional troll who tweets comfortable from anonymity in Canada while we put our lives on the line. Yeah.
Okay, so much to say about this. You've moved off. What have you done?
Shit.
It's going crazy. Okay. Anyway, all right. So I can almost comment on like every third word in this, basically. So she's a professional troll. Let's look at that first. Never ever said anything like this about her before up until this point. I think they were on fairly good terms, at least. Well, not good terms necessarily, but like neutralish terms, or they certainly weren't like calling her a troll before this, right?
But Dave Rubin, if he hears you're an ex-Muslim, he'll instantly like you because it's just the way, like, oh, ex-Muslims, that's what I'm all about. But then if he finds out more about you and doesn't like you, he'll throw under the bus hardcore, you know?
Yeah, so they have one incident in which she wasn't trolling, right? And so
I listened to it. She did a podcast with Sam Harris and with some other people where she said Dave Rubin's channel seems like kind of an echo chamber because he always has on right-wing people with very contentious views. For example, like Mike Cernovich or, I don't know, Dennis D'Souza, other people. And he doesn't challenge their views and he allows them to just sort of make whatever case they want to. And people could get the wrong impression and think, hey, this person seems really great, and not know about any of the other stuff because he never challenges them. And that's the case he was making.
Right. So the exact same argument that you, me, and tons of other people have made about Dave Rubin's show.
Right.
He has a bunch of right-wing people on and doesn't challenge them, and doesn't have many left-wing people on, but when he does, he challenges the fuck out of them. Blatant bias.
Well, I would say that he challenges the fuck out of them, but he has them on so, like, infrequently that I don't even know if it's true.
It's incredibly rare. Yeah, it is. The ones that I've seen, he's gone like, I wouldn't even say it was unreasonable level of challenging them. It was reasonable. It's the lack of it with the right-wing people that's the problem, really.
Well, if you don't ever challenge anyone, you only have on like heaps of right-wing people. It's just a safe space for right-wing people. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah. You know? And so that's the first thing. Professional troll. I don't think she was trolling at all. She was making a serious point. That was not an uncommon point to make at all. And in my mind, a totally uncontroversial point.
Some people quoted a couple of tweets she had that were mean. For example, she said, if you're something bigot, you're probably a Rubin fan. Yeah, it wasn't nice. But I mean, that doesn't make her like a total massive, dishonest, horrible liar. It's like, okay, maybe
that's not insulting someone isn't trolling. There's not a one-to-one comparison there. Like, trolling means something more than just like calling people names on the internet.
Well, so, I just think people will take that tweet as an excuse to throw her out completely and just say now she's bunk. But I don't take it that far. I'm just like, okay, that particular tweet wasn't that nice. I don't know if that's
The other thing is everybody sometimes is insulting on Twitter. That's the nature of the format. Sometimes it lends itself to being insulting to other people. So there's that. So I don't think she was trolling at all, and she certainly isn't a professional troll. Oops. You've moved off it again.
Yeah, I shared the wrong window. Anyways.
Yeah. So yeah, she's not a professional troll. Then he brings up this whole anonymity thing. I think that's what we're going to probably be talking about the most. Because he's saying that it's a bad thing that an ex-Muslim is communicating anonymously. He's like shaming her.
Well, apparently, the problem is that she's in Canada. That's the big.
Well, that's the next thing after this. So okay, sure. Like I said, every third. Well, in that case, it's every second word. But yeah. And comfortable. She's comfortable and she's anonymous, right? Okay, so. Basically, if you take that logic to its, if you just run along the lines with it, So it's a bad thing to be for an ex-Muslim to be concerned about their anonymity. That makes no sense. Are these people are shaming her for being concerned about her safety? Like she shouldn't be concerned about her own safety? Okay, so that, and then Canada is the next thing. So where does Dave Rubin live? America.
California.
How is that any less comfortable than fucking Canada? Why is it important that she's in Canada when he's in fucking America? It's not like he's in fucking Syria, you know.
But I mean, devil's advocate, whatever, they'd say that anonymity is the big thing. Like Dave Rubin's not anonymous; he's putting his
but that's the thing is
whatever.
The sentence works fine if you take in Canada out. Comfortable from anonymity while we put our lives on the line. He went out of his way to inject an unnecessary 2 words into the sentence in Canada to point out that that's where she is. So we can totally criticize that.
Right.
And it's ridiculous fucking nonsense.
And also somebody had an awesome tweet where they pointed out that Theo van Gogh was killed in Amsterdam, and it's a fairly liberal, developed place, and he got murdered right in the street. So
yeah, and during the Satanic Verses fatwa, there's a Japanese translator who was murdered in his office in Japan, in fucking Tokyo.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect that, but
exactly.
So I mean, her life can be, maybe her life wouldn't be as well. I mean, probably wouldn't be as at risk, but it would be at risk in some way. And why are you wishing harm upon this person?
Well, that's my point, is that for an ex-Muslim anywhere in the world, in the era we live in, I think it's not unreasonable to be somewhat concerned about your safety and wanting to be on anonymous when you're online. That seems I'm fine with white feminists in the United States and Canada being anonymous online for their own safety. So why the fuck was it unreasonable to think? You know, it's just the whole argument is just fucking stupid. And then
let's not get into Antifa. Let's just avoid that. What about the Nazis? That's for a different hangout. Okay.
So the last part of this, while we put our lives on the line.
Yeah.
What the fuck, Dave? Dude, you're just tying yourself, a fucking white Westerner, to people who are actually at risk. When you have never been a Muslim, you're not an ex-Muslim. You're not in any fucking danger at all, Dave.
That's exactly what I thought about it. Like, he's not an ex-Muslim. So being comfortable and being anonymous kind of overrides how much he cares about you, to the point that he's not an ex-Muslim, but his life matters more than hers now because she's anonymous and in Canada. Even though, well, like his favorite ex-Muslim apparently is this guy called Iranian Atheist who lives in Iran. So I guess because he lives in Iran, his life matters, but because she lives in Canada, she's all safe. Therefore, her life is worth less than Dave Rubin's, who is worth a lot. Like, he's at a lot of risk in his studio talking to like Dinesh D'Souza.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And when I say he's not in any danger, I mean specifically he's not in danger in the way that any ex-Muslim is for that reason. He's totally
he could be in danger because like people don't like him and they hate him, and some people are like, some Islamists, whatever, could hate him, but he doesn't have that specific hate due to being ex-Muslim. It could just be some of the shit he says on his show. Like maybe some people don't like the guy.
My point is, though, Tim, is that he's not getting murdered in a Bangladeshi, fucking tenement building by 16 armed thugs. That's not.
I think anyone can be at risk, but I don't think him being a non-ex-Muslim, like he's necessarily like more at risk from this subject than she would be if she just showed her face. She would be at a lot of risk, even in Canada, comfortably tweeting. Versus
by specifically using the word we instead of they are or something like that, he's tying himself to this group who are in countries like Bangladesh, whose lives are in danger because of the views they take publicly and they espouse publicly.
Right.
He's not part of that group. She has more argument to be part of that group than he does by a fucking country mile.
And also whether or not the fear is justified, her personal experience would give her more, personal concern for her own safety. Whereas I feel like Dave Rubin's just saying it out of aggrandizement, like, look at me, I'm some kind of magnificent hero, and obviously everyone's gunning for me because I'm so high and mighty, Whereas she would have a personal fear in her life. Like, I've seen how these things have occurred to the people around me and the people I know, so I have like a specific personal fear about it. I don't think Dave Rubin has any real specific concern for his own safety. Not that I've seen him express. I mean, maybe he does. I don't know.
Do you want to? I guess you should probably unshare it at some point. Yeah. If Dave Rubin's life was threatened by like radical Muslims, we would know. He would not be hiding the shit. He would be very publicly talking about it.
That's damn true.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think,
like, she has actual personal investment. He doesn't. He's just like a talk show host who's like capitalizing on these things, who has no personal connection to the subject. It's just something that he feels like he should talk about.
Yeah. And so Nice Mangoes isn't. I don't know that this is that relevant, but Nice Mangoes isn't white, is she? She's from
Pakistani.
Yeah, she was from somewhere in the Middle East, is what I thought. Yeah,
something like that.
So ISIS and groups like them, who are the ones who are the major players now, ISIS, al-Nusra, that kind of like style of jihadi, style of terrorism, they are the ones who are in charge, and they tend to have a thing about going after ethnic Muslims. Not even ex-Muslims, current Muslims, but ex-Muslims would be way worse to them, than just a Muslim who believes shit they don't like. Someone who's actually outright rejected the whole thing. They are the ones, and so it's not even the fact that she's necessarily just an ex-Muslim, it's that she's from that part of the world. That is the I don't know how much you've read about ISIS's like founding, not documents as such, but just rhetoric that the movement's based on. One of the things is that they want to purify the Middle East before, like, the Muslim countries themselves, then go after Israel, then go after the West. That's their plan, right?
And that's why they have Dave Rubin, because he's at the front lines.
That is my entire point. Yes, people like him will be the last. The fact that she's not from Canada, or not like white, the fact that she's a specifically Middle Eastern ex-Muslim, puts her way higher on the list of targets for the like modern style jihadis.
Right. Well, they've also implied that she's just making it up, which is a nice little character assassination.
Yeah, should we talk about that? Because there was a lot of I didn't get any examples of this, but there was a lot of, and if you go to the if you find the tweet.
I can just share the next tweet because it's related anyways. So
you will get to that, but I was just going to say though.
Stop too soon.
No, I was just going to say there was a lot of people who were just making up these accusations against her based on no evidence. They were just attacks on her character. And they were pretty fucking hideous, in my opinion, just based on this. Like you mentioned before about how they were saying if she really is even ex-Muslim. That's the
it's really annoying. Like this anonymous dude saying, we don't know if she's actually ex-Muslim. She could be making it up, and it could all be lies and stuff. And then, I mean, I could say, so I said, well, we don't know if you don't fuck goats. Where's your proof? And he's like, oh, I don't fuck goats. And then like, oh, great. I've changed the dialogue to the fact that you fuck goats, even though I don't know if you fuck goats. So it's like, it's a character assassination technique.
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to confirm a lot of things about people on the internet because it's the nature of the internet. But I would be quite surprised if everything she'd said was some elaborate hoax. Like, why? I don't know why she would do that in the first place, unless she was trying to like get on some ex-Muslim gravy train or something. But I mean, it's not like that doesn't stand like Occam's razor that she's an elaborate hoax.
Exactly. Occam's razor says the most obvious explanation is that, well, the explanation requiring the fewest amount of assumptions is that she really is an ex-Muslim like she says she is, because she knows, she talks like the sort of person, like she talks like the way an ex-Muslim would talk, says the sort of things, speaks authoritatively about. Exactly. It's you can
is it use a fake accent, just like pretending to speak with an accent,
And it's just such a blatant indication of bias when all of a sudden someone says something you disagree with, and suddenly their entire fucking identity is called into question. Is she really a woman?
Right. I mean, if we were sitting around questioning that random anonymous Twitter person, we could make him look bad too.
Exactly.
The
whole thing is not actually trying to forward the discourse or make any actual point that will be productive in any way. It's a pure assassination, character assassination. All right, do you want to go into the Gad?
Well, we don't have to spend very long on this one because it's basically reiterating.
It's similar.
Yeah. No. She's courageously anonymous in Canada while Bangladeshi atheist ex-Muslims get hacked to death. She's a hero. Right.
Yeah, he is literally shaming her for for having any regard for her own safety, basically.
Yeah. She's more interested in identity rather than broader principles. Well, I mean, so that person was making somewhat imputing her character somewhat, and then Gad was like, no, we have to put that on crack. It has to be 10 times more shamey.
Yeah. And these two comments here attacking Gad Sad for what he said, there's a whole lot of these, and they're all making great points. It's Right,
well, he also said that she was a bully who was bullying Dave Rubin and himself and other people who had similar ideas or thoughts to them, and how she was criticizing you. What bullying? It wasn't like some kind of systemic, power relationship where she's punching down on you poor defenseless whatever. She was criticizing the way Dave Rubin does his show, and Gadsad's like, she's a bully who hides from anonymity and just terrorizing us, and we're just so pathetically weak, and we're such snowflakes that we can't handle anybody saying anything negative about us ever.
Yeah. It's more outrage culture bullshit. And the thing is, okay, what struck me about all this is that it's not enough for these people to be an ex-Muslim who's openly critical of Islam. That's not enough. You also have to not be critical of them. You have to agree with them on everything. You have to dislike the same people they dislike and like the same people they like. Otherwise, you're a shill. You're a fraud.
Yeah. I mean, so how long until Iranian atheist gets thrown under the bus for criticizing one of these people?
Yeah.
We loved Iranian atheists, but then he did some criticisms of Rubin. This guy could be a phony. I think he's a fake.
Yeah. He's the worst person ever.
Yeah. So I think that's the risk when you become friends with people who are so willing to throw you under the bus.
Yeah.
So not that she was friends with them, just that, they threw her under the bus pretty quick.
And I think, at this point, anyone who is aware of this tweet and is still defending Gad Sad has no leg to stand on, basically.
Right. All right. So that's that one. Stop. The next one was, because we also said, let's look at some tweets from just random conversations that we were involved in.
Yeah, because last time we didn't do that. And Tim thought, well, let's Tim's examples were from the same incident, were regarding the same incident. So I put them, here, so we'll talk about them because on the same subject of nice mangoes and whatnot, because they are, it's on the same thing. It's on the disagreement between her and, or is it not? Is it about something else?
No, it's about the same thing, but there's another party involved that I need to mention. So I'll just share the tweet now.
Okay.
There's this dude who I've seen around a bunch, and because he's always just giving me shit about random stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, cool. And there's another ex-Muslim person who was sort of fighting with Nice Mangoes, whatever, and I came down more on the side of Nice Mangoes in terms of the anonymity debate. And then this guy comes flying in, and he's like, he said, well, originally he said, this other person has a better understanding of Islam than you do, so why don't you shut up? And why don't you believe her and take her side? And I was like, well, because I assume Nice Mangoes has a good knowledge of Islam as well. And so I guess I'm more side with her. And then he's like, so two people have a problem. They understand better and you take a side? What? How can you do that? You can't take a side. That's ridiculous. Since we're assuming both know more than you, how can you take a side? Oh, right, bias. No, I would say it's more because I agree with one side more based on the information that's been presented, and I can do that while acknowledging that they both know more than me. Which is
the hilarious thing about these two tweets is that they're the double whammy of wrong, right? So the argument's wrong, but he's also being a fucking hypocrite. Like
because I assume he sides with one of them, but then again, like I bet you, I mean, we didn't get into that, but if I was like, well, you side with Nice Mangoes, right? They'd probably be like, I mean, with the other party, it'd probably be like, yeah. I'd be like, well, what right do you have to side with that person?
I mean, it's obvious they are siding with the other party, and so that's the thing, is that the problem isn't that you took a side. The problem is that you took the other side.
Right. Well, I asked him what the bias was. Eventually, he said because Nice Mangoes is more liberal, which is weird because you know, it honestly had nothing to do with the discussion. It was about anonymity and, you know, the nature of being ex-Muslim and stuff. It's had nothing to do with like liberal versus conservative, whatever.
Yeah, and it's stuff you've talked about before. I've heard you talking about the anonymity argument and coming down on the side of defending people's right to be anonymous online if they want to be.
Oh, maybe, I don't know, maybe he's right. Maybe deep down I'm like, yeah, she's liberal, so I'll just side with her, and it's got nothing to do with the actual discussion that's being had. But I don't get the impression but
yeah, so yeah, it's wrong. You know, it's not an indication of bias to hear two sides of an argument and then agree with one of the sides. That's not an inherent evidence of bias.
Yeah, so like when you see, I don't know, Richard Dawkins having a debate with some other professor guy, you're like, it's all a wash. They're smarter than me. No idea who's right. And figure it out. Whenever you see anybody who knows more than you, you're just like, I don't know. It's beyond me.
By that argument, right? So if we hear 97% of Earth's scientists having a debate with the other 3% of the world's scientists on climate, because they're all scientists and therefore they're all experts and know way more about it than us, we just aren't allowed to have an opinion.
Right. You couldn't possibly be like, I think it's more likely than 97 whatever I'm all correct.
Unless the opinion that you have happens to be the same one as this guy's. That's okay.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's just moving goalposts, perhaps. If although I don't know where the original goalposts were because they came pre-moved, but
I mean, it's just such blatant evidence of bias on this guy's part, and then he accuses you of bias. It's just, it's almost, this is almost Poe's law level of insanity. Like, it's almost difficult to tell if it's being intentionally absurd or whether it's just absurd.
Often people come, well, I feel like, at least on Twitter, people come at me like, I must defeat you. What are we talking about? I don't know what we're talking about. Got to find a way to defeat you. Oh, okay. I'll go at this angle. It's like, I don't know why you're trying to defeat me. You're like, we haven't even had a conversation. You're just trying to destroy me without actually making any arguments because you feel like, I don't know, are you contractually obligated to try and destroy me on Twitter or something? Like, yeah.
I just realized, Tim, we never talked about the Viacom Sargon thing.
But, right. Okay.
Do you want to take it off screen? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of people saying, oh, look, this video has been taken down by Viacom. It must be because Viacom watched it and feared the quality of Sargon's arguments, and that's why they took it down.
Yeah, they changed all copyright law just for that one video.
Well, no, I mean, they took advantage of the copyright law where they might not have, is basically the argument. That the reason they decided to take advantage of copyright law is because of the quality and nature of the arguments being made in the video, which I
got a copyright claim for my recent 2,000 subscribe video because I used footage from Jimmy Fallon, and that was caught by an algorithm. But I guess it's different if it was some kind of manual takedown.
Yeah, I get that. That's the claim, is that it was DMCA, therefore it's political.
Oh, yeah.
But I would agree that all politically motivated versions of this, if there is such a thing that happens with large corporations, they would be done in that way with a DMCA claim. But that doesn't mean that because it's a DMCA claim, that means that it was politically motivated. They have no evidence for that.
Well, yeah, that's conspiratorial, because what's to say that in scenario A, they were sitting there like, oh, I don't like these arguments. Oh, not too sure about these. So we better take this down. In scenario B, they were saying, yep, he's certainly used a lot of our footage and he's sort of cut it up. And, we don't like the way that he's used so much of our material. We should definitely DMCA this. Well, B is probably more likely. Like,
I just don't think any amount of speculation on why a corporation that is designed to and legally obligated to care about profit above all else would issue a copyright warning to, or copyright thing about anything. I mean, if you apply basic logic, you'd think it was probably financially motivated because they're a corporation,
right? And he's got a lot of subscribers, so a lot of people are seeing this footage, and he's showing all of the footage, mostly like unedited, and then they have an issue with that because so many people are seeing their content.
Yeah, so what I mean is that if you're gonna go by pure guesswork, that would lead you to think it was probably not politically motivated. But if you just disregard guesswork entirely, like you should do, there's no evidence either way or in any direction for why they did it, other than the fact that all we have is the fact that they did it. So it's like
literally a conspiracy theory. But the thing about conspiracy theories is sometimes they're true, but you don't know. That's why it's a conspiracy.
Yeah, and I was in a hangout last night, which I'll get to later because we're going to talk about that soon. But I was in a hangout last night in which they were talking about, they were doing this conspiratorial talk about Sargon, and I was in the chat, by the way, not the actual hangout. And that's what I said. I was like, that's a conspiracy theory. And they're like, oh, no, it's not a conspiracy theory. And I'm like, okay, if there was more than one person involved in this decision, then it was because it was done in secret. It was not transparent. They didn't issue a warning saying we're doing this for political reasons. And
rogue employee.
And it was unethical because that's not why you're supposed to issue copyright notifications. So you could make an argument that it was unethical. So it's two people doing something unethical in secret. That's a conspiracy.
Just by
more,
definition.
But at least more, two people or more, I mean. Yeah,
well,
so it's definitely...
A lot of people either say or take conspiracy theory as meaning it's not true. But that's not the way I take it. The way I take, because for example, the Gulf of Tonkin incident or whatever, conspiracy theory, and then later proven to be true. But that's the thing. A lot of conspiracy theories are proven to be bunk. So just because something's a conspiracy theory doesn't mean that you can be like, oh, it must be true. No, it doesn't work like that. It's well, we don't have any evidence. It's just speculation. It's literally just...
The two important factors here aren't that it was a conspiracy theory in general. That doesn't matter because, like you said, conspiracy theories turn out to be true all the time. And talking about the 2008 financial collapse and blaming that on Wall Street isn't a conspiracy theory. That's just accurate. So that's not the problem. The problem is that it was the first thing they went to based on no evidence.
Exactly.
It's not like they saw compelling evidence and thought that's got to be something that, for example, when I investigated all the classic conspiracy theories like JFK and stuff, I just didn't think there was enough evidence to support them. So I disregarded them, and I thought the counter arguments, like the fact that Lee Harvey Oswald tried to shoot that general and stuff, so the counter arguments against the conspiracy theory were more compelling, right? And it's the same here.
That's why the JFK shooting retains its status as a conspiracy theory. It hasn't
because
to it's established fact.
But there's no established fact in it, and what we do know, based on guesswork, which is all we have in that case, does seem to indicate that Lee Harvey Oswald definitely wanted to kill the president and was a very skilled marksman capable of making the shot that he made. So.
But. Oh, no, don't worry. Not now. Okay. So the next tweet is one related to you, which I didn't know about. So you'll have to.
Yeah, there's a bit of backstory. Maybe I should I go into the backstory first? Or maybe I should. Yeah. Okay. So because we're going to be talking about this for a while because it was related to a few things. Right. So. Well, actually, we're going to be talking about it for a while now, and then later on in the hangout separately.
This is so I was in a. Two Lord of the Rings extended edition hangout. All right, go
on. So I was in a hangout. I was in the chat for a hangout, a solo live stream by Ranting Feminist last night, and it was quite an eventful hangout. One of the things that happened in it is some people in it started going on about patriarchy theory being unproven and not being real and all this stuff. And I used a classic counter argument to that. Although, you know, we were in a chat format, so I wasn't writing out paragraphs of stuff. I was making an extremely reductive and simplistic version of the same argument that I've made before. Basically saying that if you just bring up any other falsifiable academic theory, you can make the same arguments. They're not provable in the confines of what is being asked. So I said, prove to me germ theory. And this person was like, oh, you know, I can't do that. If you just give me a microscope, I can do that. And I was like, yeah, exactly. If you had the tools and you're outside of the confines of being in a fucking chat on the internet, you could prove it to me. And it's exactly the same thing. And, you know, later on, this person was like talking about how observations have been made for scientific theories. And I'm like, that is my entire point that I'm making. Observations have been made for patriarchy theory as well. It's just you don't know about them, haven't read them, didn't make them yourself. However, you also didn't make those same observations yourself for anything in the hard sciences. But that you just accept. Bias.
Yeah.
See, that's the difference between him and I. I look at all experts who have dedicated their lives to studying a particular thing and have PhDs or master's degrees in it and have studied it for 20 years. It's probably knowing their shit, maybe. If you're going to make an assumption, the assumption should probably be erring on the side of them knowing a thing or two and like not being an idiot. You know what I mean?
Share the tweet.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
All right. Here it is. Just tried to have a civilized discussion with Garrett Girton. Shame he could be polite and rational. I don't know that. Wanted me to prove germs. No.
I assume he means couldn't be polite and rational. Wanted me to. Yeah. He actually thought I genuinely wanted him to prove germ theory to me. He just didn't get it at all.
Right. What you did was criticize me instead of my argument. Failed to get my point. Couldn't back it. Then you bailed. Wow, I never criticized you. Only your argument. Did he criticize you?
He said, I quote what he said in the next tweet. He said, "Be better, Garrett." That's not criticizing my argument.
Be better.
That's what he said. That is not criticize. And he's like, oh, yeah, but what I meant, or I was meaning to criticize your argument, so it's fine. And I was like,
I get stuff like that a lot too. Like, there are people who will follow me because they're like, oh, you're the safe social justice person. And you're like, you're the good progressive or some shit. And then we get in an argument and they're instantly like, I thought you were different than this. I've lost all respect for you. and then I'm kind of like, well, then maybe you shouldn't have followed me in the first place because maybe I was different than you thought I was. And you just wanted somebody who just always agrees with you, but is on the social justice side. Like, no, sometimes we're gonna get in disagreements, and some people just can't handle that. And they're like, I trusted you, man. It's a bit like that. It's like concern trolling. It's a little bit different, but like, be better, Garrett. I'm just trying to improve you by making you agree with me. You know?
Yeah, I mean, so the thing is, he's saying he was the one who was trying to have the civilized discussion when he was the one who said the fucking stupid thing first, the be better, Garrett thing. And then when I respond to that appropriately with scorn and dismissal by this person who is now basically insulting me, why should I react any differently? That is, when you do something like that, that's the reaction you're going for. You know what I mean?
It's very poor form to disagree with other people whose arguments you don't agree with. That's pretty wrong.
If I said to you, "Hey Tim, you suck," and then you were like, "Hey," and you got like annoyed at me saying that, is that your fault or my fault? That's my fault because I
would say, prove it, sir. Where's your evidence? Make your case.
So that's what annoyed me, is that he was the one who fucking off-railed the fucking conversation in the first place by acting like a child and telling me to be better instead of saying anything about my actual argument, which he didn't even understand. So that's obviously why he was not criticizing my argument. He didn't understand it. So then he's telling me, and then he's complaining that I wasn't polite and rational after the point that he fucking derailed the conversation. So, it's just a little bit.
Well, I also find people do veiled insults. Like they'll make their argument and then they'll tack on the end of that something like, I expected better from you or something.
Yeah, and this guy was...
And like, that's just a veiled insult. You're just saying like, P.S. you're shit, but you're trying to sound polite about it. And then you rightly get offended and they're like, oh my God. Why are you getting offended? Just because I passively aggressively insulted you.
I mean, and the other thing is, this guy later in the conversation was concern trolling me. He was like, I think you need to calm down, man, because you seem a little bit unhinged and you seem to be taking everything like real personal, like feels before reals and stuff. And I wasn't. I was being totally calm the entire time.
Yeah.
And, you know, and like,
tweeting in a rage, shaking.
Yeah. And then later, what we're going to get to next is his friend comes into this, just barrel rolls into this fucking conversation out of nowhere. And I was concerned trolling him later, but I was admitting to him up front that I'm fucking with you, while I was doing it. I wasn't trying to fucking do it in an underhanded bullshit way. I was acknowledging that I was just fucking with the guy, It's
like a tweet suicide bomber. Where the fuck did that come from? It's like trying to pick up the rubble. Okay, so should I do the next one then?
Yeah, it's on the same subject. So,
by goading no saw. I don't know what the handle means.
It's not sharing that I can see. Oh, there we are. Okay, so this guy, this is his very first tweet in the discussion. This is his entry into the discussion. He never said anything to me before this, right? And keep in mind that in the hangout that this was all caused by, I didn't bring up patriarchy. The other people did. And I never even said patriarchy was a legit thing. All I did was compare it to another academic theory, right? So I haven't said anything other than doing that. So this guy barrel rolls into the fucking conversation. First thing he says is, define and prove patriarchy right now over Twitter. And it's the most fucking... And this guy went on, and this went on for hours, this conversation.
And you failed.
And for all I know, it's still going on now. I don't know. I haven't checked. But this guy... Honestly, this guy has sent me over 100 tweets, like easily, and basically all of them of roughly the same nature, disregarding anything and everything I'm saying and repeatedly asking me to prove patriarchy, like not acknowledging any of my points, just reasserting his, like re-asking the question over and over and over, dozens and dozens and dozens of times. Like, even though I was bringing up all these points about how it's ridiculous to ask someone to prove that in that fashion, and I basically got to the point where I was just like, you know what, I have brought up citations about patriarchy before to other people, but I'm not fucking doing it for this guy, because this is the most fucking entitled fucking... He was just demanding that I prove it for him. And so basically that's what I ended up just repeatedly saying to him, is like, look, I'm not doing it, and the reason is because of your fucking bullshit attitude. Now you just like... Okay, it's one thing if you're in the middle of a debate. If I was in the middle of an actual debate with this guy, a real conversation, and I had asserted patriarchy and made a reference to it, and then he's like, right, okay, you need to provide some evidence for that. So
Garrett, sorry, the lady who wants to inspect my flat just arrived. I have to let her in.
Oh, for real?
I'll be back in a second. I'll try not to be too long. Sorry.
Okay, sweet as. All right, well, I will just talk then.
All right. Hello.
I probably should have got him to unscreen share before he...
Call thing that I'm doing right now, but is it okay if I just keep doing my call and you can speak?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
If it's inconvenient, I can come back. I've got another on-station show. I'll come back if you'd rather.
Oh, when will you come back?
Just listening to...
I'll probably still be on a call then.
As long as you can let me take some photos.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no
Any
problem.
issues that I need to know about?
Not that I know of.
All right, I'll just look around. I'll be 5 minutes.
Oh, okay, cool.
Cool, thank you.
Hello?
You really should have muted your mic, Tim.
Yeah. Nah, it's all good. Nah, but she'll be looking around.
I couldn't really talk because there was quite a loud noise going on. So it would have been two people talking at once. So I just sort of didn't say anything.
It was like a good high quality conversation in the background there.
Yeah, I could clearly hear both of you talking. Yeah.
But okay, so that's that one. We could do the next one, right?
Well, I mean, I do have a bit more to say on this, actually. So there's a few funny things that happened in this conversation, right? The first one was he said goodbye, then kept tweeting. That's always funny, right? Like, and it, like, the second time he said goodbye, it was like 10 seconds between that and his next tweet. It was amazing. I've never seen that turn around that fast, And I was basically just, at that point, I just started repeatedly mocking him for being so driven by his feelings that he can't even stop himself anymore and just has to keep replying. And so I basically was intentionally as provocative as possible to keep him replying so I could stack up all these tweets after saying goodbye. And I eventually got him to say goodbye a third time and keep tweeting. So yeah, I was basically just making fun of him. But then the important part, though, at the end of this conversation, the thing that made me basically cut it off, even though I was having a lot of fun with it, is that this other guy turns up, right? And he basically starts. I could show you this, but there's so many. There's hundreds of tweets in this conversation. It's just there's so many of them. Anyway, this guy comes along, and he accuses me of denying rape culture with between women and young girls, women molesting young girls. That I deny that part of rape culture, and I've never said anything that would possibly indicate that. Ever,
Well, that's the thing, is I think people tend to get bundled up in all of the ideas in their sphere or whatever. So, I'll constantly be asked to, like, how do you prove the gender pay gap? How do you prove patriarchy? How do you, and off a lot of the time it's just totally out of left field.
Anyway, can you unscreen share?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so the guy's been sea lining me hard, asking me for absolute proof of patriarchy, right? Then this other guy turns up and accuses me baselessly of being a rape denier, basically, in a specific way. And then the guy who was just asking for evidence just latches straight onto that, and he's shoving the accusation at me now. He's heard one person say a wild, unsubstantiated accusation, and now he's just repeating it like a parrot at me. It was like, okay, so when it comes to patriarchy, you need absolute scientific evidence with no doubt before you'll believe it. But an accusation about me out of nowhere by one person with no supporting evidence, and you're just instantly on the bandwagon. But the guy's a fucking fraud. So that basically, that was where I told him to get fucked, basically.
Yeah. So now you know the etiquette you need when approaching Garrett. Don't be a douche. All right. Next one. This one is pointless, but it was just a bit funny. And I thought it was only just funny for like one reason. Like, so this is Menonist. I don't know. Is that like a big thing? Menonist people?
Kind of, not really. It's sort of half parody MRA shit.
Is it parody or for real? Because I can.
It's hard. It's not. It's saying it's trying to make a serious point, but using humor to do it. So it's not really parody. Is not the right word.
Right. So it says, this bitch don't know it yet, but I'm about to excuse myself to the restroom. Leave her with the bill. Let whoever she text and come here and pay for this shit. Whatever. And I just thought it was funny because the way I read this was like, this girl is very lucky because this guy is a massive misogynist prick and she's dodged a bullet. And she didn't know that he was such a fucking douchebag. And also just like the etiquette of like, oh, I'm just going to bail and make you pay. Like, fuck.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different things that came to me about this one. The first hilarious thing is he's complaining that she's on her phone during the date while he's clearly taking this photo with a phone. A
lot of people said that too. Didn't he have his phone out too? He took the picture. He wasn't texting throughout the entire date, so that person
apparently that makes well, we don't know that for one thing, but yeah, that makes it fine apparently, and we also don't know that she was. But yeah, so then the other things about this is the central complaint about this is a lack of date etiquette, right? That's what he's complaining about. It's not good date etiquette to be on your phone the whole time. So his response to that is to fucking bail on the date, as if that isn't terrible date etiquette. That's much worse. That's like a fucking leg for an eye. It's like a decapitation for an eye instead of eye for an eye.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
So it's kind of like, wow, this poor woman, she's been deprived of a relationship with you.
Yeah,
you seem like such a good person. So I mean, it's so sad, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the other thing. Is that any fucking person attaching themselves to the term Menonist is probably not someone that she's gonna want to be dating anyway. So.
Yeah. Well, someone in the chat saying this tweet is a joke. You can criticize it for bad humor, I guess. Yeah. Well, that's why I said this is just a stupid one. So.
Well, but that's the thing is that the Menonists use humor, but they're trying to make a serious point. So, like saying it's just a joke is basically making an argument that humor can't be used to make serious points, which is just flat out false, obviously false. And they were trying to make a point with this.
Well, the wider point here, I guess, in that sense, would be that this woman is a bitch who deserves bad things. I don't know. I guess, is that the message? Yeah. She's shit. Fuck her.
It's just a general same bullshit the MRA is going about all the time, dating all the way back to fucking Warren Farrell and his date fraud bollocks, rape apology bullshit.
Yeah. So I would say this particular one was just funny. That's all. Not a big deal. Okay. What was the next one? Sorry to figure my crap out. All right, this one's the Ann Coulter one.
Yes. I love Ann Coulter.
So show it first, or?
Yeah. There's not much context for this one unless you haven't watched the American news in like the last 2 years.
Yeah. This one. Sounds like the big sellout is coming. Oh well, the voters did what we could. If Trump sells out, it's not our fault.
I guess it's more like a year and a half, but whatever. All right. So basically, she's saying that it's not the Trump voters' faults if Trump sells out. That's on if he's a sellout, that's on him, not on the people who elected him. Yeah, that would be true if there wasn't a massive and extremely well documented history of him being a con man and a fraud.
I think that actually the main issue here is the source, which is Ann Coulter, and we know that she has, been working tooth and nail for Trump specifically for a very long time. Because from someone else, you could take this as just a general point. Like, if Trump sells out, like, it's not like the general public, well-meaning people's fault. But we know that this is Ann Coulter, and she has specifically been fighting for Trump night and day, like trying to make him look good.
But she's not saying... But if you read the tweet, she's not saying that people like her who worked for Trump personally did what we could. She's saying the voters did what we could.
Whoops. Yeah, I know but that's why I'm saying that's the issue here for me is the source. She has no credibility based on her history. That too, but you need that wider context of like Ann Coulter has been fighting for Trump this whole time, and now she's trying to make this like wider point that I think she's just the wrong person to make that point. To be honest,
I think maybe that context makes it worse, but you don't need the context to see the flaw in this argument. That Trump is a blatant con man. Everybody knows that who has half a brain. Trump University, his whole fucking career. When he gets investments and then fucks over the investors and recoups his money by doing tactical bankruptcies and shit. That's skeezy, unethical bullshit. Did you know that no New York State banks will give loans to Trump anymore? He's blacklisted at all the big banks. Yeah. So I mean, it's not a controversial idea that this guy's a con man, that he's a fraud. It's well documented. It's well known. So when you say, "Oh, we couldn't have seen it coming," that he didn't mean what he was saying and that he was actually lying, no, that is on you. Because the evidence was there.
I think, a problem with me is that I always want to see the best in people. So I always want to assume like, okay, there's some Trump people who just don't really know what the fuck's going on. They can't really figure it out. And they just thought, he's anti-establishment, whatever, bought the talking points, voted for him. But specifically Ann Coulter, when she says I wouldn't include her in that category. I would say, no, you are the person who you're the person that knows everything about what's going on. You have no fucking excuse. You can't say I was ignorant.
Exactly.
She's not part of this hour. The hour would be like some just, I don't know, vaguely ignorant whatever person who doesn't really know what the fuck's going on, but like, I don't know, Trump will do whatever. I'm sure there's some people who are out there like that.
I don't think Ann Coulter's like an idiot or anything. So it's not like she can't access all the evidence about Trump's bullshit. She should have been well aware of it, and I believe she probably is well aware of it. But I
just don't buy her appeal to populism in this case. No, it's not our. You're not part of that hour. You're part of the specific group of people who knew exactly what was happening. You fucking idiot.
So you're saying her attempt to identify with the grassroots Trump voter base is
yes, such bullshit.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think it's central to the point of why this tweet's full of shit, but it is it's a little auxiliary point to be made. Yes, I agree.
That was just the main thing I got from it, but I know that like you got a different angle or different sense.
Well, just the whole idea that Trump selling out couldn't have been called months in advance. It was obvious,
Right.
I mean, most politicians do the kind of shit that Trump's doing now, but Trump has an even better documented history of doing that kind of dodgy, unethical shit. than what the average politician does, you know?
I just think you can't underestimate people's ability to make mental blocks that shield them from saying that someone is doing something wrong. Like, you know, making excuses or being like, oh, you know, he was just joking, or oh, I'm sure that's not really happening, or oh, he seems like a good guy. Like, you know, there's always some excuse.
Also, that tweet by Josh Sanchez, that reply is quite good. Although is 2.5 million an exaggeration? Isn't it more like 2 million? I don't know. But yeah, that's quite. I like that. His point anyway is that the voters did do what they could to warn everyone.
But it failed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it failed because
All right,
of
so
America's...
almost towards the end here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we got the Blair White one.
Yeah.
Alice, anything else to say on the Coulter one, or?
Nope. It wasn't complicated.
It's quite simple. Yeah. All right. This is the Blair White tweet. This one says, reminder that racist jokes are funny and that stereotypes exist for a reason. Laughing with and at each other is a positive thing.
I love how the genius thing about this, stupid thing about this, is how absolute it is.
It really is.
She's speaking in such absolute terms. It's just so ridiculous. So racist jokes are funny. They just are. And you know, the funny thing is she doesn't say race-based jokes, or like jokes poking fun of race, or taking a sideways glance at race issues or something like that. She literally just straight up says racist jokes.
Well, some racist jokes are funny.
Well, I mean, she doesn't say some. It would have been a bit more reasonable if she'd said some. But
well, Mr. Scarecrow in the chat is saying it's Twitter. Of course, it's absolute. I don't agree with that at all. You think like it's too hard to put the word some in there?
Yeah, some is 4 letters, bro. It's not hard.
Yeah, it's not difficult.
Qualifying phrases are very easy to throw in there.
Yeah, like racist jokes can be really funny. I'd be like, okay, I don't necessarily, I probably don't share the same sense of humor. So
well, no, I would disagree.
Find it funny more often.
I would disagree that a racist joke can be funny. Nothing racist can be good. But race-based jokes that are like taking a sideways glance at race issues, that can be done well. That's funny. But something that's like actually racist, that's not a joke anymore at that point. It's pushing an ideology of racism.
That line is difficult sometimes to tell.
Well, no, I mean, if just the word racist is a pretty clear indication of where you are on either side of the line, you know.
Right.
And okay, so if there's no qualifying phrases, it's just straight up. Stereotypes exist for a reason. Okay, so that's basically saying that any stereotype can be just gleefully indulged in, because stereotypes in general exist for a reason. So even if you've got a totally bullshit inaccurate stereotype based on nothing of any substance at all, something that's just a total misconception, that's fine, because in general stereotypes exist for a reason. All right, well, you can probably take the screen share off at this point.
Well, laughing with and at each other is a positive thing, I think.
Yeah, well, that's just, I mean, that can be a positive thing, sure, but it's not absolute.
Laughing with others,
that is always pretty much.
Usually is. It's hard to think of situations where it's not. At
just
each
based
other,
on
there's a lot of situations when that's not.
Exactly, based on the nature of the words used. Yeah, laughing with somebody fundamentally is generally a good thing. I can't, like you said, I can't think of any situation
what if you're laughing
in which
with people at someone? It's like, it's kind of positive for like you and your group who are with each other to laugh together.
Yeah, okay.
The person you're laughing at, they don't really like it. Probably.
I guess. Yeah, what I was more saying was that when you're laughing in favor of something rather than against something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so but the laughing at thing, laughing at other people, is just in general great.
Well, I mean, it can be positive for you and the people around you, but the person you're laughing at, generally, I don't think they would see it as a positive experience unless they're just got a really good sense of humor and they can laugh at themselves. So, because a lot of people don't appreciate being laughed at. I mean, it's just like kind of human nature, isn't it?
I mean, I'm not going to say that laughing at someone is never a good thing, never okay. I laugh at people on Twitter all the time when they say stupid crap, you know. But that, well, for one thing, that's because the format sort of endears itself to that kind of an exchange. You can't have nuanced, deep, insight-filled, back and forths with someone on Twitter. So, you're sort of reduced to saying dismissive, insulting things when, especially in that context, when the person was wanting me to do something with Twitter that it isn't capable of doing. He's saying, use this platform to prove to me this complex falsifiable academic theory. And so that's what I was making fun of. Was I can't do that. So what can I use to do Twitter? I can call you a fucking idiot and make fun of you. Well,
I think that's the problem with Blair White's tweet, is it's lacking in any kind of perspective or, who's it positive to? Is it positive to the person being laughed at? Like, not necessarily, but it could be positive to you to laugh at something. Sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think my take on whether laughing at someone is positive is more of a sort of take a step back, objective. Not objective, but like
we'll try to look at it holistically. Like, in the aggregate, like is this social, a positive or negative thing?
A macro level view, a societal level view. Yeah, you could make an argument that mocking fascists, for example, and it could be a positive thing.
Yeah, but the idea that just laughing at people in a racist way is always funny, which is pretty much what that tweet was saying. Is using absurd.
When you're confronted with a racist joke that's laughing at someone, that you should just think, that's fine.
It's always funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way it was phrased. And if I mean, I don't have much faith that Blair White is a lot more thoughtful than that and just phrased it wrong, but maybe she did. But based on her tweets, it doesn't really seem like.
No, I've just got to respond to something in the chat. Mr. Scarecrow, you've got it backwards. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the opposite of it. I'm saying you can't have nuance on Twitter, and it's ridiculous to demand that. Like the guy was demanding. He was asking me to do something way more complicated than it's possible to do on Twitter. And so that's what I was criticizing. I wasn't saying Twitter conversations should have more nuance. I'm saying they can't have more nuance. That's the problem.
I think the issue with the Blair White one, though, is that is next level laziness, not attempting any kind of nuance whatsoever. And as we said, you can easily put in qualifiers. It's so simple.
Yeah.
Or to me, racist jokes can be really funny. I'd be like, all right, I disagree with you because I think racist jokes are not that funny, but I can't disagree they're funny to you. Sure, okay, yeah. And I disagree with you and shit, but whatever.
I also have to take exception to this tweet based on a purely rhetorician level, because it's a terrible way to do an argument. If you want to convince someone with your argument, qualifying words and phrases are essential, because when you make absolute statements like that, it's not compelling to anyone who doesn't already agree with you, basically. If you already agree with Blair, you'll like it. But other than that, you just be like, it's being an absolute. And I don't, human brains are designed to not like absolutes. I think intelligence in general above a certain level doesn't like absolutes. So
only a Sith deals in absolutes.
So from the point of view of her argument, it's also worth criticizing, because if she just put some in there and put another qualifying term in the other sentence, it would have been a much better argument, and she would have been much more able to actually be compelling to people.
Yep. Anyway, so are we going to do the last thing that we're going to do?
So the last thing is not mentioned in the description, and we've left it until the very end for reasons that should probably be obvious to most people in the audience. But we're now going to talk about some bearing-related drama, because that's always fun. Because the guy is he's the fucking Jenny McDermott of YouTube anti-feminism. He's a drama machine.
Yeah, and he's been on a fucking drama high recently, just churning out videos.
Yeah, he has. He's been going after people in our community quite hard recently.
Wait a minute. Am I getting... I see if I can get some audio out of my speakers so that you can hear the audio while I'm...
Yeah, hopefully it'll work. It is going to be experimental, but yeah. So, but just to give some quick background on this, in that same Hangout that I was in the chat of, the same ranting feminist live stream, Bearing turns up says one thing and then leaves, and this is what he said. I didn't screen cap it, and to my knowledge, nobody did. But ranting. It was a very short. It was a very short sentence, so I should be able to just bring up because Ranting Feminist did remember it and quoted it to me. So I'll just find that. Hold on, give me a second. All right.
He's such a sniper. Like he just snipes. Like I see them as drive-by videos. That's what they basically are. You know, swoop in, snipe, and shit on everything, and then run away again.
So this is what he said. He comes into this live stream. There's not many people in it. It's very casual and relaxed. I mean, there was that argument about patriarchy that wasn't very long, and this happened immediately after that. So Bering comes in. He says, quote, "You aren't going to like me much after tonight, ... Then he leaves. And this is the sort of thing that is just childish fucking nonsense. It does wind me up a bit because it's just so fucking juvenile and like macho and mysterious and all bit like we've got a badass over here kind of thing. It's just fucking can't we get over this kind of nonsense? Yeah.
Obviously you're triggered and you need a safe space. I can make a video out of that.
I mean, it's just
anyway, so we were going to watch his video that he made about ranting feminist. It's quite short. It's only 4 minutes something. And then Garrett hasn't seen it. So it'll be live reaction. I have
maybe not sat through an entire Bering video ever before. I've tried to watch a few of them. I didn't even watch his response video or whatever it was, his ponage video he made about me. So yeah, I'm very much not a watcher of Bering's content on a regular basis. This is going to be interesting. Yeah, and like Tim said, I haven't seen this video at all.
Well, I mean, Mr. Scarecrow's saying, well, it gets a reaction. I wonder why he does it. Her. Well, I mean, he's going to do it either way. So, I mean, it's just what he does. It's what he's been doing since the start of his YouTube life. So, I mean, what difference does it make, really? You know, that's just his role. He's the sniper.
I would argue that he does not do it for the reaction it gets. He does it because he likes to do it.
Yeah, and the Momo, the monies.
Well, there's that too, but I mean, he's an anti-feminist. It's not hard to make money on YouTube as an anti-feminist. He would be saying anything. He wouldn't even need to be doing response videos at all. He could just say some stupid shit that's against feminism and he would get subs. So
he'll keep sneaking around doing drive-by vids. Anyway, so we're going to watch this one. Is this the right window? No, you can't see my mouse. Maybe that's the wrong one. Hold up. It's going to change the window. This is exciting. All right, here we go. Okay. So it's called What If I'm Triggered by Trigger Warnings? And you said that you've talked to people or talked about this kind of talking point.
Well, no, I rebutted this talking point in my response to Secular Talk. I very briefly mentioned why the argument that trigger warnings don't work because they have the thing that they're triggering about in the trigger warning, and it's a invalid argument, and I basically just pointed that out and said why. But yeah, we can go through it again.
All right, and I gotta warn you, there are some obnoxious fart jokes in this, so if you don't like childish fart jokes, turn away now. Okay, tell me if you're getting the audio.
Yeah, I will.
Today I'm going to be womansplaining feminism. Today I'm talking about trigger warnings.
So right away, I mean, you guys catch that.
So yeah,
today we're going to talk about trigger warnings. Fart sound, yeah, good one. Anyway, okay.
So I see a lot of misunderstandings online, or at least what I perceive as misunderstandings of what phrases like trigger warning actually mean. In my experience, this has been a measure implemented in very specific corners of the internet for the sake of not upsetting people who've experienced some kind of trauma.
For the sake of not upsetting people, I thought being triggered was some next level rocking back and forth in the corner of your bathroom type shit. And I didn't think there were many people who didn't understand what a trigger warning is. I thought it was more a case of some people, arguably a lot of people, questioning their effectiveness.
For people who've been abused.
No. Okay, so there are people who question their effectiveness, of course, but most of the rhetoric against trigger warnings is exemplary of a basic misunderstandings of what trigger warnings are, by which I mean who they're intended for. I see a lot of people just saying that they're intended for SJWs with thin skin. No, they're intended for people with serious mental disorders who have been caused by them experiencing extreme traumas of various kinds.
Right. So actually, I found the first half of his statement not that bad. I mean, the way he phrased it was stupid or whatever, but it was like next level rocking back and forth in the corner or whatever. Okay, that's probably a better way of thinking about it in terms of...
you mean a non-ableist way of describing that?
Well, I mean, that's a better way of thinking about it than how it's used online and on Twitter, YouTube, and whatever, as just like, oh, you said something that was offensive or triggered, blah, blah, blah. But I think the problem is that Bearing is like, oh, we just don't like the way it's used or the way it's propagated. Like, I feel like the anti-fem side of the people who have slowly just sapped trigger of any particular meaning to just become like, I'm offended.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe feminists committed the original sin, but I think anti-fems propagate that all the time. So, I mean, I don't know how it's like people who want to use trigger warning properly, how's it their fault that it's used in such a flippant way?
And I mean, okay, so it's possible that Bearing just doesn't know that there's a lot of people out there who don't acknowledge or understand that trigger warnings are designed for mentally ill people and people who have suffered trauma. So he may be genuine. He's never heard that before. It
well, he
seems
said, I thought
unlikely.
it was next level stuff. So that shows that he has an inkling that.
Well, no, he understands that therefore, but I mean, it's easy to say that when that's what RF just said it. You know what I mean? So he probably understood that before he saw her video, but even if he didn't, he's just been told that anyway. So anyway, yeah, it's
I mean,
nice.
So far, not so bad, whatever.
Well, it's nice that he acknowledges that trigger warnings aren't for just random SJWs with hurt feelings or whatever, because they're special snowflakes or any of that bollocks. It's nice that he acknowledges that's not what they're about, but it would be even nicer if he didn't deny that that's what a lot of people argue.
Right. All right. Well, I mean, so far, not too bad. We'll see how...
Yeah, it's not too bad. All right, proceed.
For example, they can end up developing a condition like PTSD. For a soldier who's returned from war, people are aware of things like fireworks triggering an anxiety attack.
Yeah, I get that one. If you're going to be causing literal explosions to happen, it's probably polite to take steps to ensure anyone in the vicinity of those explosions is aware that those explosions are going to occur. Likewise, if you're somehow presenting graphic depictions of abuse or rape, it's probably polite to mention it ahead of time.
It's similar for rape victims.
Well, there he says it's polite. I mean, what do you think of that? Like, it's polite. Like, with the thing he said about the fireworks, it sounded like he was just talking about like being a good citizen and being like, hey, we're going to be doing explosions. Is that a trigger warning, or is that just like being a good neighbor?
No, it was RF bringing up a comparison. You know, and sort of a thing that isn't a trigger warning, but there's like a trigger warning to help people understand what trigger warnings are.
Okay, yeah.
But where Bearing's gone wrong is that he's talking about the nature and level of the trigger. That's not relevant, though, because different people have all kinds of different levels and different kinds of triggers. You know what I mean? So that same PTSD person, it might not have been an explosion that scared them. It might have been, I don't know, they saw a little girl getting raped by the Taliban or something like that. So whenever they see a little girl who looks like her, or depictions of rape or things like that, that's a different thing. That's not an explosion, but it's just as relevant to the person. See,
but I found it a little strange because he was just describing like being polite and saying we're going to set off fireworks. And you wouldn't necessarily be telling that because you're worried that they'll get triggered by the fireworks. You might just be being a good neighbor and say, hey, we're going to set off fireworks.
Well, my point is that he's looking at it from the society's point of view, but that's not what it's about. It's about the individual, the relevant individual's point of view, right? So from the point of view of society, only things like explosions and gunshots and things like that, those are the only valid things, because those are the things that any old random fucker on the internet can understand without it being explained to them. You know what I mean? Whereas, say, for example, a much more obtuse and esoteric trigger, I don't know how much detail I should go into, because I know of a few that are quite random.
Oh, God. I mean, later in the video, he gets into this absurd ideas of triggers, so probably deal with that later.
Oh, right. Okay. But yeah, so yeah,
this
anyway.
Video gets progressively stupider to be...
my point is that when you look at something like a trigger warning, you're supposed to be doing it from a sympathetic angle about the person, not what's about polite for society to do. It's not from society's point of view. It's you're taking the other person's perspective as important and taking their word for it on good faith at face value that they're being genuine about what affects them and taking that seriously. Right. So he's just looking at it backwards, basically.
Yeah. Okay. But he could still be doing worse than he currently is. So
yeah, let's get on with it.
Victims and mentions of rape or depictions of it in the media can trigger an overwhelming response of anxiety.
And this is where you lose me. If somebody gets triggered by the mere mention of rape, then wouldn't a trigger warning that mentions rape trigger them? I don't understand how one more mention of rape is supposed to help.
The idea that of a...
Well, I mean, like right away, she said like depictions of rape, and now he's downgraded that to mentions of rape. Like the word rape.
That's the goalpost shift. That's the special pleading fallacy he's used there. So, yeah, it's not about mentions of, this is a basic misconception about trigger warnings. It's pretty easily dismissed, but basically they're saying that a rape trigger warning can't possibly work because it has the word rape in it. So it's obviously going to be reminding the person of the rape, but that's not how triggers.
But that's also not even true. Like they often don't mention the word rape. They'll say like this contains they could say this contains scenes of non-consensual sex which may be traumatizing or something like that, because they often like use kind of different phrases to like describe things, so I don't necessarily know though how they phrase a rape warning.
It doesn't matter at all how they phrase it, because if you put the word rape in your trigger warning, you don't get a bunch of complaints saying, how dare you put the word rape in the rape trigger warning. Nobody complains about that. That doesn't happen, because that's not what it's about. It's not about
I don't know if they even do that though. I mean, maybe do.
A lot of them do. I mean, a lot of them say rape trigger warning for rape, but it doesn't matter at all what they say.
No, I get you.
So yeah, basically he's saying that people are just special snowflakes who can't handle to hear certain words, but that's not it at all.
Well, I mean, the trigger is not the trigger warning, it's the depiction, it's the content which is triggering.
Yeah, and it's about
not the mention of it. It's not just the thought of it, it's seeing it in the content of whatever it is you're watching.
Basically, how I described it in my Secular Talk video is that it's about the similarity of the experiences. So you've got the person who is reading the whatever it is, or watching the whatever it is, and you've got the creator, not the creator, the whatever's being talked about in the thing that has the trigger warning on it, right? So say, for example, if the person reading the thing, I don't know, watched a loved one hang themselves in front of them at a young age or something like that. That's a fairly common, really terrible trigger for some people.
Yeah.
I mean, fairly common in terms of what is considered a serious trigger. Not lots of people watch their parents kill themselves, and that's all I'm saying. Anyway, so if there's a person like that, and then there's an article about another person who had that exact same experience, that's the sort of thing you might want to avoid if you're a person.
I mean, because this is literally like, oh, this is triggering that time that I got traumatized when somebody warned me about rape. And that was so traumatizing. Like, what are you talking about? That's not the problem. The problem is the depiction. It's not the warning. Like, that's just fucking absurd. Yeah.
Mr. Scarecrow's asked, where do you draw the line of what is considered worthy of a trigger warning? Well, that's frequency. Basically, if it's something that a large amount of people have a trigger about, then good, have a trigger warning about it. But for example, I know a woman who
people are not traumatized by the word rape, they're traumatized by what it is.
Well, exactly. But yet this person's asking a serious question, so I'm going to answer it. So I know someone who has a serious trauma related to maggots. They were abused by someone utilizing lots of maggots in the undertaking of that abuse. That's all I'll say about it.
Jesus.
So she was absolutely fucked up about maggots, but it's not reasonable to create a maggot-based trigger warning because there's not enough people with that same thread, right? But rape, yeah, that's common. You know what I mean? So that's where you draw the line. It's how many people it's relevant to, because it's a utilitarian thing. That's all you can really do. That's the only real way you can draw the line.
Right.
Is using utilitarianism. Anyway, yeah.
Okay.
So you want to keep going with it, or?
Yeah. And do you have something else to say, or?
No, but I am running short on time, so we should probably get through it. We probably weren't going to get through the whole video, to be honest.
Right. Oh, we could just power through.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, but then you'd be forced to watch the whole video. That'd be.
You should at least start it and stop talking. So we.
Trigger. I'm going to play bearing. A trigger for your intelligence levels.
Trigger warning is simply to warn viewers who may be upset by content. It's used no differently to viewer discretion warnings on the television. The only difference is that it's a lot more specific what the trigger will potentially be.
Okay, so hypothetical scenario. I'm triggered by, say, ducks. Connie's triggered by biscuits.
You might as well pause it already. I've already addressed this. Frequency. He's making an argument for an infrequent trigger. So
he just gets it gets really stupid. Like he says the cat is triggered by something. All right, it's comedy. Ha ha ha. Good comedy should completely screw up what things mean.
No worries, Mr. Scarecrow. I will always answer what I perceive to be good faith questions, and you, in my experience, have generally seemed to come in good faith, and you know, you're not some underhanded, disingenuous idiot. So if any serious question you have that I have the time to answer, I'll answer. But having said that, I am almost out of time.
I think it's a cuck. So anyways, I'll play from here.
Anything.
But yeah.
Triggers refer specifically to feelings associated with trauma, sometimes feelings that are triggered in relation to mental illness. I used to see trigger warning food on posts and wonder why that was there. As it turns out, that is there so people with eating disorders who are triggered by images of food can avoid content that upsets them.
Really? But you'd think at some stage quite recently they'd have actually eaten food, you know, on account of them being like alive.
Pause it again.
The chaos that
That's so stupid.
Yeah, because there's no different types of food. It's all just generic foodstuffs. And so any one picture of food is just the equivalent to whatever they ate. Yeah,
and
nice logic there, Barry.
Yeah, assuming that everybody has the same relationship to food and it's positive for every single person.
What he's saying is that what he's saying is that a person, say, let's take, for example, a person with eating disorder on the overweight side rather than the anorexic side. If that person is on a diet now and is eating extremely responsibly and very limited in portion sizes, and what they're eating is always very healthy, they're not going to want to see the kinds of shit they used to eat if they can avoid it. It's going to be ideal. In an ideal world, they're going to try and avoid like images of cakes or whatever. You know what I'm talking about? Just stuff that's different. You know what I mean? So his argument there is like assuming that all images of food are the same.
But he's also saying that if you eat food, food is good. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, what? How the fuck does that make sense? You know?
Well, Mr. Scarecrow, I would say that the food, it really depends on what these food trigger warnings are being put on. If it's something if it's a website about cakes, for example, you're going to expect to see a bunch of cakes there. So the person with the eating disorder probably shouldn't go to that site. If they're going to that site, they should probably be expecting to see things they're not going to want to see. However, if they're on a site that has nothing at all to do with cakes and is, say, a feminist site or something like that just happens to be bringing them up, then maybe that's a situation where you could conceivably consider putting it on.
It's fair to say, like, oh, you know, I mean, maybe restaurants in general shouldn't be forced to cater just for like a few or some individuals who are triggered by this. Like, that's okay. But it's very unfair to say, no, you have to have a good relationship with food, which is kind of like what he's saying. Like, you don't have an issue, you don't have a problem, just fuck off. It's kind of very like there's an empathy gap there.
Well, okay, so there's a few other things, right? So the other thing that I don't know if Ranting Feminist mentions this in her video, because I haven't actually watched her original video. But one of them, this is something I missed out in my Secular Talk video, so it wouldn't surprise me if other people miss it out too, is that oftentimes with trigger warnings, it's not about avoiding the content, it's about preparing yourself for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, because a lot of the time it's the unexpected nature of running across it. For example, like if you have a trigger about suicide and you're just scrolling around some social media crap and whatever, like looking at pictures of kittens or whatever, and then suddenly there's a really gratuitous like suicide reference or something, that's the sort of thing that could catch you off guard. So it's not necessarily about just avoiding anything that could possibly offend you. It's about being prepared, you know. Giving people
there's types of food of like, you know, we're not just saying all food is going to trigger you.
But that's what I mean. Like, so if this person is on a date and is trying to avoid unhealthy foods and is doesn't have great willpower and wants to avoid any what do you call it, temptation, or not any, but trying to reduce the amount of temptation they have.
So that wouldn't be like necessarily like a trauma trigger, but more like it triggers you into just eating that unhealthy food again and kind of like gorging or, you know, affecting your relationship with food to be exposed to it again.
Well, yeah. And I mean, like, I hadn't actually heard of food trigger warning before, but it makes perfect sense to me. And the other thing I wanted to bring up is that I think my stance on trigger warnings is I don't care if people decide not to use trigger warnings at all. If that's their decision, that's up to them. I'm not going to tell them off for it or criticize them for that decision. Equally, though, I think it's equally unreasonable to tell people off and criticize them for using them. You know what I mean? If they want to use them or not use them, that's up to them. And I think when you're criticizing one and not the other, that's biased, you know?
Yep. I mean, do we have the time to finish this video?
Probably not. I've pretty much got to go at this point. My dog, Kara, has hurt her foot, and she's got a vet appointment that I'm about to be picked up for. No, this morning.
All right.
I don't know what's going on, but it's quite swollen and it's got a cut or something, so I'm taking her to the vet.
I said we didn't add Tom or insult Bearing enough in this video.
No, Bearing sucks, lol.
Bearing's dumb and he's a retard.
And I did want to just quickly say one thing. I just wanted to quickly say one thing. Christy Winters has pointed out that he uses a ton of appeals to incredulity, arguments from incredulity.
Yes.
And I have, so true that he does it constantly because he doesn't understand the thing that's being argued. Therefore, it's not valid. And that is basically what he's doing in this response video at the moment. And
I think he said something like that at another point, like towards the end. Well, and also towards the end, and it's just from memory, so if I don't get it exactly right, I'm not lying, I just can't remember and we're out of time. He's like, so basically everything should have a trigger warning, or all things should have trigger warnings, or whatever. And
he's just ignoring the frequency aspect of this whole issue.
Yeah, but I mean that's not necessarily incredulity, but it is like, I don't understand this argument. Like, it's this.
That specific comment is not an argument from incredulity, but it is caused by incredulity. He doesn't understand it, therefore he's framing it incorrectly.
Yeah, like wait a minute, I thought trigger warnings were derp. Yeah. And then that's like his fucking argument. It's like, okay, you thought it was that, and that's not necessarily true, but is that really just your argument? Like, wait a minute, isn't derp? Sorry, Bearing. Why am I apologizing to this guy?
Yeah, I mean, that does seem to be the case a lot with Bearing, is that he doesn't understand the argument that somebody's making, and therefore that is his problem with it. And he reacts in that same way that people often react when something's gone over their head. He gets sort of irritated and confused and annoyed, and gets sort of aggravated, about it.
Well, if you go through his videos, you can often see him say, I thought that, and like he just says the thing that he thought it was, and then his previous thought about what that thing was apparently is an argument against the current argument the person is making. And he sees that a lot. I mean, I see that a lot, like when I go through his videos.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is like someone is explaining what trigger warnings are to him, and instead of engaging with their explanation, he does that a little bit, but he mostly does it fallaciously. But mostly what he does, mostly what he does isn't say, oh, okay, so let's engage with what your definition is. He goes, no, I thought trigger warnings were this, and then argues against that.
Yeah,
classic move.
Oh yeah,
but it's pretty.
Skills.
But when you have critical thinking skills, it's pretty obvious when people are doing that.
I'm going to do that more often.
Yeah.
It's very convenient. Anyways.
Yeah,
so,
I gotta go. I gotta bail, and hopefully my dog doesn't have gangrene or something.
Sorry, guys. Right. We intended to cover the whole video, but sometimes time constraints
And you know what? I feel like I've seen. It's the same thing with any Bearing video. He's gotten to his central argument, which is the frequency argument, and he's just going to go with that, and that's all he's got. And it's not a valid argument anyway, so I already know that. So do we really need to watch the rest? I don't know. I feel like we kind of don't. So that is in itself.
It does make us dishonest liars.
It does make us disingenuous scumbags who are
but we
clearly
were going to be
distorting.
that anyways, because that's I get
Well, we're-
told that
we're
that's
left-
why.
We're left wing, Tim. It's in our blood, right? It's in our bones. We can't help but be
Dishonesty
dishonest.
flows through these
Yeah.
veins.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like we're just inherent liars. That's what we are. Yeah.
Yep. So that's actually why we're cutting it short. It's not because you have to help your dog.
Yeah. This was all pre-planned. We just
Exactly.
cut it off exactly there because
Garrett, you
immediately after-
pretend like you've got to help your dog, and
yeah, and we know that this point in the video is where he starts making the really good points.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's
I can
hilarious.
see why you cut it off there.
Because this is what I'm about to.
You're dishonest. That's my bearing. This is a fundraiser for your dog. Oh, we should have thought of that.
She is extremely pampered as a pet. She's got it pretty made, I gotta say. Multiple walks each day, usually. You know, all the treats she can eat. All right, sweet. All right, okay. I've got to go now, but this was good. I think we covered some interesting stuff. Hopefully, people will enjoy that, and hopefully,
see.
Bearing will not find out about it and send his followers after me again.
All right, everyone, keep this a secret.
Although I'm sure he will, and when it happens, it'll happen, and I'll document it as for more evidence for how terrible Bearing fans are.
Cool.
All right. Okay,
right.
sweet ass. All right.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.